And here we are. We are getting ready to roll, guys. Knight Brothers commentary coming to you. We have got a brand new studio setup. Going to be cooling off on the video for a little while in favor of a little bit more professional sounding audio recording that we hope to get out onto a couple of different podcast platforms, bringing you something that might be a little bit more, I don't know, palatable. You can put it on your headphones, put it in the car while you're driving. So we're excited, and we hope that you will be too, and we hope that this makes it easier to kind of consume what it is we're talking about. So with that, Matt has picked a very exciting topic for our first kind of episode here on the new equipment, and I'm going to let him kick it off.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about the new Space Force that Trump signed into law in December 20th of 2019.
Yep.
So as far as I understand, this is basically just going to transform the Air Force Space Command into its own separate branch of the military that's still technically under the jurisdiction of the Department of the Air Force.
Yes.
Kind of like how the Marine Corps is still technically under the jurisdiction of the Department of the Navy.
There you go. And that's well said, Matt. I think it's two co-equal sort of brands, if you will, under one umbrella.
I mean, that is probably the best way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Matt, I've taken a look at the notes that you've put together, and just so everybody knows, Matt always does the legwork putting the notes together, so kudos to him. And I'm really curious. I know you got a lot of different things we're going to touch on here, but I want to, just for our audience who maybe is hearing about the Space Force for the first time, can you give me a rundown of what it is, why why this is something that President Trump has now decided to move forward with, and how this is going to look, going forward, in the Department of the Air Force?
Yeah, so for me, I would say the Space Force is, like I just said, the new branch. To be honest, there really isn't much that I know at the moment, and I don't think most people in the Department of Defense really kind of know what's going on.
Okay.
Because from what I've read, they're going to take like around 18 months just to kind of figure out the culture. So like all the uniforms, where they're going to be trained, like all that good stuff.
Yep.
So, but from what I do understand, some of the units that were attached to the Air Force Space Command, like I mentioned before,
yeah,
they are now part of the Space Force, but they're technically considered airmen, I think. I think they're still considered airmen until they kind of figure out what directions that they want to go with regards to how they want to organize the Space Force and like what their culture is going to be.
Yeah.
So right now, this new branch of the military is just kind of in its really early stages.
Yeah. Well, and I just wanted to get a summary out there so that the audience actually knew what it was we were talking about. This because it's so new, December 20th. We're what is today? January 19th. So we're only a month removed. Maybe folks didn't even know this had happened. So with that, I'll let you dive in, Matt, to the notes and kind of all the different talking points that you've got for us tonight. I'm really curious to see what you've put together.
Yeah, so as far as the notes go, for me, I mean, this is just kind of like my ideas, or at least some of the ideas that I found posted by other people on the internet.
Okay. And we always publish these show notes, so you'll be able to go on and see all the different insignias.
Yeah, so I just want to give proper credit to where credit is due, but I personally don't want to call it the Space Force. I feel like the Space Corps just sounds a little bit better.
Okay.
I mean, that's just me personally, but
and that's what this is about. This is about, we've critiqued a lot of things on this show, Matt.
Oh, absolutely.
And are going to continue to do that because it's just, it's fun. So, I think it probably rolls off the tongue a little bit better. Force might be a stronger word, and we know President Trump likes to use strong words and build himself up in a powerful image, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, with regards to the mission of the Space Force, or the Space Corps, as I personally just want to call it.
That's fine.
For me, I feel like what Trump wants to do, I don't really think he wants to militarize space as of yet, considering the treaty that we signed back in the 60s.
Yep.
Well, at least I think it was back in the 60s, might have been the 70s, but we can't technically weaponize space yet, but he definitely kind of wants to get all the different space units that are within different branches of the military together under one branch to try to have it a little bit more focused, a little bit more centralized, a little bit more, shall we say, just a little bit more efficient. Because when you have so many different units in the military across different branches kind of doing some similar but maybe a little bit different things, I think he just wants to get that organized maybe a little bit better.
Okay.
I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I could be totally wrong on that. So if anyone thinks better, please let us know in the comments. Or
and Matt, I'm curious, what would you say to the viewer at home or to somebody in the audience who's sitting here thinking, okay, we've got people starving all over Earth. There's half of the world's living basically in poverty as it is. We've had some recent challenges in the Middle East in terms of some back and forth between what's really going on with Iran. And where I'm going is, what would you say to somebody who says, why on earth do we need a space force when we have so many issues here? And I'm just talking about, those are a few things that are, the poverty and the military stuff, but there's so many issues, whether it's education, immigration, the homeless deal that's going on right now across this country, drugs. Why would we allocate taxpayer dollars to a space force that we don't even know what's out there? It was nothing and I know you and I have talked about this, but I want you to kind of give me some of the feedback that you gave me before for our audience.
Yeah, so for me, from what I understand, it's not necessarily about extraterrestrial threats at the moment.
Right.
It's more just kind of dealing with terrestrial threats that are in space, because China, Russia, and even possibly Iran, all of these countries are starting to weaponize space. They're starting to really kind of develop their own kind of because you have to keep in mind, a lot of things that we use every day, like GPS, satellites that help provide all the internet, those things, I think that's the reason why Trump wants the Space Force. Yeah. He wants to have, from what I've been reading, a lot of people in the Air Force weren't really giving the space missions, the due diligence that they deserve. Right. So he kind of wants to have their own branch just to kind of focus on that. And he doesn't want us to lose pace with other countries when it comes to space development.
Yeah.
It's not about developing colonies as of yet, or going off and fighting extraterrestrial threats. Yeah. It's more just kind of reorganizing all the space services that the military provides into one more efficient system, like I kind of mentioned before with the previous question.
You said it perfectly, Matt, when you said it's not really aimed at extraterrestrial threats. It's terrestrial threats that are in space already, the things that exist today. And that, it's just, and I'm glad you say it like that, because, when I hear Space Force, it's hard for me not to go immediately to oh, is it Thanos coming down, from above? Is this really where we're funneling our government dollars? But I understand that that's not what we're talking about here, although.
Eventually, a century or two down the line, that is probably where it is going to be. Because personally, I truly believe that the human race will leave the planet Earth and start colonizing other planets within the next 100 years.
Yeah.
If not potentially sooner. But I feel like the 100 years is probably going to be the time where it really kind of picks up.
Well, it's certainly, you think about how quickly technology's evolved just in our lifetime.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it.
And I'm 30 years old. I wouldn't put it certainly outside the realm of possibility. It's coming quick. And folks are continuing to innovate and press the boundary of technology and what it's capable of. And so,
just to the point where basically we have to redefine life itself.
Well, we're getting into that. That conversation with AI and all the things that are out there. And it's, for the average American or average listener, I should say, that's listening to this, I think those things are really, really hard to get your mind around if it's not the space that you live in every day. If you're not an engineer or, a scientist or whatever that's working on those things, you hear the term all the time, AI. But if you really dive deep into what some of these projects, through Boston Scientific and some of these other, think tanks, we are not far off from integrating the human mind into a computer system.
Oh, I know, because I think I've seen some of those things before as well, and I'm just like, are you serious?
Yeah, it's
are we really getting to the point where we could literally just put our minds, our conscience, into a robotic body to essentially grant what could be considered immortality itself?
Yeah,
it's just you got to be kidding me.
And those are the things that are getting worked on. So that's why when I hear Space Force and and we are talking about terrestrial, things, not extraterrestrial. Guys, the world is moving so quickly. And I'm not trying to be Mr. Conspiracy here, although that's another topic for another day.
Oh, no question about it, given the conversations we've had.
Yeah, but my point being is that, listen, the media and the left are they're gonna crucify Trump no matter what he does. I have not been the biggest proponent of funneling dollars towards a space force, but I think it was just based on my misunderstanding originally of what this all was going to entail. So with that, I know we've kind of gotten off the notes here, Matt. I don't know what else you're trying to dive into in terms of specifics that we've got supported here with the documentation.
Yeah. So just kind of going back to the notes, I kind of want to delve deeper into the culture a little bit.
Okay.
So for me, I would say one of the first things I kind of want to talk about is training and stuff. So
yeah.
So for
this is all hypothetical. This is based on your input, what you would like to see this look like.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So this is not what it is or what it's going to be, though it possibly could be, just depending on what the Trump administration or any future administration wants to do. But this is just my personal thoughts. Okay.
Perfect. So I just want to clarify that for the audience.
Yeah, fair enough. So for me, I would say I would want to have like all the enlisted service members go through basic training the same way that all members of the Air Force do, until they can get more facilities built at Buckley Air Force Base, which is I think it's based in Aurora, Colorado.
Okay.
So I would say for new members, they go through the same process as the Air Force does until they can get their own facilities built, and that way they can kind of just develop their own culture, at least for the time being.
Yep.
Then after that, I would say for all the warrant officers, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I want all the people who are both Navy and Army to actually kind of merge into the Air Force as well, not just the Air Force-based units under the Space Command.
Yep.
I want all the branches, I want all their units.
All the ones that are already working in that in that arena.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And since the Navy and the Army both technically have warrant officers, I want to have those kind of be part of the branch as well, which is what the Air Force doesn't have at the moment, even though I think for me, I just want to have that kind of within the Space Corps as well, just because I feel if you're already doing this stuff as a warrant officer and you have to transfer to a different branch.
Yep.
Just imagine how difficult it would be just to kind of figure out what your pay is going to be, or if you have to change your rank. So that would just be kind of a pain in the butt, at least in my opinion.
No doubt about it.
And with regards to the structure, I would want, like I said before, everything that was previously under the Air Force Space Command is still within the Space Corps. But I also want the Army Space and Missile Defense Command to also be part of the Space Corps.
Okay.
I also want the Space Corps to have its own civilian service, kind of like what the Air Force and Army do. Okay. So basically, it's kind of like civilian contractors working with military service members.
Yep.
So for me, I would say the National Space Council, that has to be part of that. That's a really high level government.
And is that the National Space Council, is that an organization that exists today?
Yes.
It does. Okay. Yes. And what purpose does that serve?
It basically just advises the president on space affairs, essentially.
Yep.
But I would also want NASA to be part of it as well.
Makes sense.
I know that will probably be a controversial statement to a lot of people, but I do think if we could have the military service members who are in the Space Corps working alongside people with NASA, I just feel like it's going to be a much better idea than having them just work separately.
Well, anytime you can bring in, experts from the outside and people that are proficient in their field, let's say, and leverage technology, resources, information to a common goal, hopefully, I would have to imagine that if you were to look down the, if you want to call it mission or vision or whatever it is of, as we're calling it, the Space Corps or the or NASA, there has to be some overlap there.
Yeah, and not just that, but also when you really kind of think about it, eventually, if we are going to start developing colonies, which is what NASA is going to be doing, you're going to have the military and NASA working together more closely than, say, if they were to be separate. So having them kind of work together is I just feel for me that's the best way to go forward, because if you keep them separate and just have them kind of working on similar but different things, I feel that's just going to limit the potential of not only NASA, but also potentially the Space Corps as well.
Has the Space Corps announced, or the Space Force, as Trump's calling it, announced any plan for a space station or some sort of, location in space? Or is this just more, like you said before, kind of an increased amount of attention being placed on the things that already exist today?
I would say it's more the latter than the former.
Yeah.
But I would say eventually, if he gets reelected, I would say yes, eventually there will probably be a space station.
Yeah.
Probably within 2024. If you ask me, but
okay.
I please do not take this the wrong way. I'm not saying that is what the Trump administration is going to do.
Right.
I'm just saying that's potentially something down the line that the Trump administration may want to do. Yeah, may want to do, as opposed to something that they're actually going to do. So I just want to clarify that for the audience, all right?
Makes perfect sense. So what else do we got on the docket, Matt? When's Thanos coming? I'm ready.
Ooh. Well, if we can get all the Infinity Stones.
Yeah, right. Well, we could take this conversation in another direction. But in all seriousness, is there anything else you wanted to touch on as far as this is concerned?
I would say probably not. I feel like
it's an exciting announcement.
Absolutely.
I assume there's going to be more information coming out.
There's definitely going to be more information as time moves along. But as for right now, there just isn't really much to kind of go on with regards to all this stuff. And if you want to read the notes, check the website link down in the description below.
Yep.
So that way, if you want to read those notes, I think right there.
Matt's constantly updating and editing his notes, which is a good thing because we're always getting more information, always learning, and I'm sure this will be not the only episode of the Space Force, so to speak. So with that, guys, I think we're going to bring this one in for a landing. No pun intended. We appreciate you guys listening to the first one. Would love your feedback on how you like the audio version and what kind of content you'd like to see coming out, whether it's Space Force related or anything else. Leave a comment, send us a message, and we'll look forward to hearing from you.
All right. See you guys.
See ya.